Palm Beach. My name is Joshua Manning, the executive editor of the Town Crier newspaper, and I'd like to welcome everyone here this evening and those people watching at home and on the web.
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Thank you. I would like to thank everybody at the Town Crier newspaper who worked to make this happen. I would like to thank everybody at the Village of Royal Palm Beach, our co-sponsor, for making this happen, and then everybody also at the Central Palm Beach County Chamber of Commerce and the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce of Palm Beach County, who is our co-sponsor on this as well. I see our CEO, Mary Lou Bedford, is here of the Chamber. Thank you very much for joining us. And now, somebody who needs no introduction, our moderator for this evening, Jim Sackett.
Thank you, Josh. And let me extend my good evening to everyone who was here in person, here in the Village Hall in Royal Palm Beach, and to those who may be watching on Royal Palm Beach Channel 18. My name is Jim Sackett, and I'll be the moderator for this candidates forum for the mayor of Royal Palm Beach. The election is March 19th. This forum, as Josh mentioned, is being sponsored by the Town Crier newspaper, along with the Central Palm Beach County Chamber of Commerce, the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce of Palm Beach County, and the Village of Royal Palm Beach. The candidates for the position of mayor on the Village Council are incumbent Fred Pinto and challenger Steve Avila. With us this evening are three people who will be asking the questions for the first half of this forum. Josh Manning, who you just met, the executive editor of the Town Crier newspaper. Callie Sharkey, a reporter who covers the Village of Royal Palm Beach for the paper. And Elan Coffer, the external affairs manager for Florida Power and Light, who tonight is representing the two chambers that are sponsoring this forum. Now, for those who are in the audience with us this evening here in this room, you can submit questions, if you so desire, during the first half of this forum, and those questions will be asked by me during the second half of the forum. First things first, however, the ground rules, which were conveyed to the candidates already. Opening statements can be up to 3 minutes, answers to the questions posed to you for 2 minutes, and closing statements for 2 minutes. Now, we are not going to be hard and fast on the timing since there are just the two candidates. However, our timekeeper, Mary Lou Bedford, is going to be holding up a 30-second sign to kind of keep you on the straight and narrow, kind of keep you on track, and I do not anticipate having to jump in at all. And we begin this evening with opening statements and going alphabetically, meaning that Mr. Avila, you will go first, and you have up to 3 minutes.
Thank you very much for everyone for coming here today. Thank you for the Chamber and also for Mr. Sackett for being here. I grew up in Royal Palm Beach. I went to Cypress Trails Elementary School. I graduated from Royal Palm Beach High School. I've been involved in a variety of different civic organizations in my time here. And Royal Palm Beach is my home. And over the last 12 years or so, since I've been an adult, I've noticed that we never really have contested elections. We never really have high voter turnout. Very few votes are actually needed to get elected, and there probably are some high schools where people get elected president more than people actually turn out to vote in municipal elections here. This is true. I want to change that. I want to make sure that Royal Palm Beach has more transparency. I want to make sure that developers aren't playing a large role in the process here in Royal Palm Beach. And I want to make sure that we navigate these new waters that we're in with the growth and development here in the Western communities responsibly. There's a reason why we live in Royal Palm Beach and not West Palm Beach. We don't want to turn Royal Palm Beach into this satellite West Palm Beach. We want to have this Mayberry-esque small town charm that I grew up in, and I want to continue that for future generations. I also believe in term limits, and that's a discussion that we need to have a very, very serious conversation about, because 20 years is a long time. I was in 8th grade 20 years ago. I want to represent a changing Royal Palm Beach, one that's more representative of the people who live here. And if elected, I would literally be the first person who grew up here. Y ahora solo quiero hacer algunas palabras en español para aquellos que están viendo en la casa. Podemos hacer historia este 19 de marzo si ustedes vayan a votar por mí. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Pinto?
Hi. Good evening, everyone, and I wanted to thank everyone who's in attendance. Thanks to the town crier for putting this on and sponsoring it, and to Mr. Sackett for being here. Royal Palm Beach is a tremendous place to live, and I've had the honor of being a public servant to you, the citizens of Royal Palm Beach, yes, for the last 20 years. And the reality of that is we've moved Royal Palm Beach into a position that is unprecedented. All right, we have established a level of excellence that it's interesting when people say to me, they comment, gee, what are the issues in Royal Palm Beach? My response is, we don't have issues in Royal Palm Beach. We have a challenge. Our challenge is to sustain the level of excellence that we've achieved and the levels of service and the safety of living here for our citizens, which is what I've been working at. We've had some tremendous accomplishments over the last several years that I'm very proud of. It's interesting that he used my comment, right, that I've used for 20 years, is maintaining the Mayberry-esque quality of our village. We're different, all right? We're not in competition with other cities, and there's no way we will ever be a satellite of West Palm Beach. We have our own culture, we have our own standard of living here, and we have a saying that we've developed and that we had input from our citizens to establish, that Royal Palm Beach is a place to call home. So what we're looking for is, families starting out, young families with children. This is a place where over the years they've come to settle and live. And then the grandparents will come down, and the grandparents will find that this is a tremendous place for them to have their retirement years as senior citizens. And that cycle just kept repeating itself, word of mouth, family to family, and that's how Royal Palm Beach has grown. We're in an excellent state financially. We have the lowest millage rate of any city in Palm Beach County, any city over 2,000 people. And that didn't happen by chance. It happened through hard work, and it happened through providing leadership that was focused on intelligent, good governance, not politics, all right? And so I would look for the honor of continuing to be a public servant to our citizens here in this wonderful city, if given the opportunity.
Thank you, gentlemen. And now to the questions from our panel. The questions and answers will be on a rotating basis. Our first question is from Mr. Manning, and Mr. Avila, you will answer first, and you will have up to 2 minutes to respond. Mr. Manning.
What are your top goals over the next 2 years should you be elected mayor of Royal Palm Beach?
Transparency in government. Oh, is this one? All right, sorry. Bringing more transparency in government. It's very difficult to get access to a lot of documents here, whereas in other municipalities, I can go straight to their website and I can find that. I'll give you an example. Campaign contributions. If I want to find that here in the village of Royal Palm Beach, I need to email the village clerk, and then she sends it right back to me. In Wellington, our sister right next door, you can find that information online. And so when I talk about the role that developers play, I'm literally talking about following the money. Florida does not have any rules or any laws against what's essentially quid pro quo, where you have businesses that do dealing with the village who come directly in front of the village for projects, and then they are the ones who are writing checks and making contributions. One of the major things that I want to do is change exactly that. I vow not to accept contributions from anyone who will be having a project up in the village. That's probably priority number 1. Priority number 2, responsible development. And I keep on using this term, not because it sounds cute, but because I am seeing Royal Palm Beach grow and develop, and I've seen it over the last 2 decades, since my family first moved here in '97. And I don't like terms such as City Place of the West. That's what I'm referring to when I talk about satellites out here. I want to make sure that Royal Palm Beach is Royal Palm Beach.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Pinto, the same question.
Okay, I think I may have mentioned it in my opening comments. Our biggest challenge we face is sustaining the level of excellence we've achieved. If I use a football metaphor, if you go to the Super Bowl as a football team and you win the Super Bowl, you're looked upon as the best team that they have in all of the NFL. Well, I look at us as we're the best city that you can find in all of Palm Beach County. And our citizens have come to expect that level of excellence to be sustained. So that's really the challenge we have going forward. I don't understand why there are accusations or comments being made about transparency. I mean, we have a procedure in place and we're fully compliant with public records request law, but we don't have a full staff of people, maybe Wellington does, that may be handling that. We have a very lean staff, but we do respond to those requests when they're made, and that's the procedure we have in Royal Beach. As I said, we're not in competition with other cities and what they do. And since it was mentioned, I agree. What's being developed across Southern Boulevard, first of all, we need to understand that that was a project that was put together that was not part of the village. It was not unincorporated. And the people developing that initiative wanted to come to Royal Palm Beach. We told them it would only be on a voluntary annexation basis, which we went through because the residents that were living there then had to vote on that. It's not going to be a city place of the West. It's going to be a family-oriented entertainment venue, a place where the families can take their children for entertainment and not have to travel down to West Palm Beach or some other city for that. And it's not in the core of our city. It's part of an area that's outside the real core of our city. We put a special ordinance of zoning on what they can and cannot do there. But one of the things that's more important is we created it so that whatever happens there cannot be replicated in other parts of the village of Royal Palm Beach. And that's one of the ways that we will retain our quality of life for our citizens and not impact the core of our village, which is really what we're looking at. So,
Ms. Sharkey?
did I go over? Okay.
No, you were fine. Thank you. Your question, and Mr. Pinto, you will answer first.
Thank you. What are your thoughts regarding the current expansion plans at the Royal Palm Beach Recreation Center? Is there anything in particular you would like to see included in that project?
That's something that we've had on our drawing boards for several years, and we were able to come to the point where we're ready to move forward with actually making that a reality. A couple of things we're looking to do is we want to expand the availability of resources for our senior citizens and the many programs they have there now. This will give them an opportunity to expand it. But it's not just our senior citizens, it's others, our youth programs within the village as well. We're going to have an additional gymnasium, which will mean we won't have to borrow and use the school's gymnasium as we have our athletic programs progress. So we're looking to move forward with that, and I think it's going to be another tremendous asset of expanding the capability at our rec center.
Mr. Avila.
I've always been a fan of all the different activities that are offered at the rec center. I made a mistake of telling someone that this debate was being held at the Civic Center, and they walked into, I think, a yoga class by mistake. One of the things that I think that we could do more of is, so we talked about senior citizens. I have two grandmas who live in this village, one who's 78, one who's 81. They're watching at Gracias por ver desde la casa. And I feel like there's not enough for senior citizens who don't speak English. I've thought about taking my grandmas to bingo, or I've thought about taking my grandmas to these things, but they speak Spanish. And as of right now, I haven't really been able to find avenues for that. So that's probably a segment of the population that I feel could benefit with additional recreational activities.
Mr. Coffer, your question, and Mr. Avila, you will respond first.
Good evening. My question relates to some of the business issues in town. What do you see as some of the biggest challenges for our local businesses?
Thank you for the question. I would say when it comes to making sure that they're adhering to ordinances, making sure that whether it's noise control, whether it's being able to drink outside, all of these things I think that we've been able to make adjustments for. I think that challenges are just with ordinances that we have, but we've been able to address them accordingly. I would say that that's probably a big thing that a lot of businesses face here, making sure that they're following our local ordinances.
Mr. Pinto.
Let's put this in context. When we talk about businesses within the community, one, we want to see more goods and services made available to our citizens, give them those opportunities to get the things that they want to get and not have to leave the village to do that. But we are living in challenging times for the business landscape. And I think one of the challenges businesses face is it's an inflationary environment. It's costing them more to deliver goods and services than they had in the past. And there's a pushback from the, from the customer saying, gee, you know what, I'm not going to buy as much as I was buying before or use as many services as I was using before. And this has a ripple effect in the open market for businesses to continue to operate. One of the things I'm going to be reinitiating is to talk with our business community is Coffee with the Mayor. All right, this is something that was very successful we did in past years. And now that we've come out of what I call the COVID environment and we're getting beyond the impacts that we had from the COVID environment to our business community, we need to figure out, okay, now how do you survive in this new landscape, if you will, or this new environment, which is the post-COVID environment for our local businesses.
Mr. Manning, your question, and Mr. Pinto, you will answer first.
Okay.
How would you rate the village's recreation programs and park system, and what would you like to see more or less of? And what other changes, if any, would you like to see regarding parks and recreation in the village of Royal Palm Beach?
Wow. Okay. First of all, I just want to say that we have more park space available per capita than any other city in Palm Beach County. All right, and we're very proud of that. We have a very vibrant, active youth program, and the way we've managed that is we have third-party independent groups actually running those programs for us. We'd like to see those programs continue to grow. We had it pared down, as I say, going back to what we went through in the COVID environment. But this year, I think in next month, they're going to be starting the new baseball season. The spring baseball season will be starting up. And I'm hearing the numbers of students, of children that are coming out to participate in our program is going up again. So that's what we're looking for. This is for the children. I had a son who went through all of the programs in the baseball program, who grew up out of that and wound up playing baseball for our high school. And we want to continue to see that kind of growth happen and maturation happen. We also want to continue to expand, see what we can do to expand our pickleball capability. And we have a vibrant youth community, a citizen committee that's involved in our pickleball programs. That's growing. We want to get the younger folks involved in that program as well. So that's something we're looking to do.
Mr. Avila.
So we have is one of my favorite things about Royal Palm Beach. We have about 21 parks with 2 on the way. And if the question was, what would I do differently? I have an aunt who is disabled and is in a wheelchair. And I would probably say having there be a bit more accessibility for people in wheelchairs. But aside from that, I think that we've been doing a really great job with our parks, both in terms of the funding that they get and also the different recreational activities that are there.
Thank you, gentlemen. And now, Ms. Sharkey, your question, and Mr. Avila, you will respond first.
How do you feel the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office is doing fighting crime in the community? What areas, if any, do you feel need improvement in regard to law enforcement in Royal Palm Beach?
Sure. So each week at the Royal Palm Beach Rotary Club that meets at Hillary's, we have about 2 to 3 officers who show up. And we had one meeting where we were given like an educational seminar about crime in Royal Palm Beach. And one of the things that I found fascinating was that, or interesting rather, is that a lot of the crime that's happening here in Royal Palm Beach isn't from residents in Royal Palm Beach. There are people coming from outside of the village. And one thing that we seem to have a number of incidents of is people leaving their doors unlocked, their cars, and then having them get broken into. So in terms of what could be done, in terms of what could be done, education, and making sure that residents are being a bit more aware. But PBSO has done an excellent job over the last couple of years. We've seen crime plummet in the village, and that's one of the things that makes Royal Palm Beach such an attractive place for families to move and for them to raise their children.
Mr. Pinto.
Absolutely. Royal Palm Beach, that's our #1 priority for Royal Palm Beach citizens. We want them to feel safe in their homes for them and their children. We enacted the decision to move to the PBSO, I guess about 12 years ago, and I'm proud to say I was a prime mover behind working with our then council and making that key decision. One of the best decisions I think we've made among all of the things that we've done. We've achieved the level of being in the top 10% of safest cities in Florida. And it wasn't always like that, and we're glad that we were to attain that. And as I said before, the challenge is to continue to build on that and sustain it. We have a special contract with the PBSO, and our captain, Captain Naox, works as part of the staff, reporting directly into our village manager. So we manage and operate with that unit. We have permanent deputies assigned to the village, and then we have the ability to increase coverage based on the requirement of horseback, helicopters, SWAT teams. We really have an extended force multiplier capability in place by having PBSO in working with us. So I'm very proud of that, and we will continue to keep Royal Palm Beach a safe place to live.
Mr. Coffer, your question, and Mr. Pinto, you will answer first.
So next question is, how would you describe your leadership style, and how would you apply that during your next term if elected?
Well, I've been applying my leadership style since I've been elected, and my style is, I'm a public servant. I'm here to serve the people of this community. I'm not a politician, never have, and never will be. And the thing I've enjoyed is working with staff, working with our village manager, and working with our council. They understand our context and focus is intelligent, good governance. And it's not as hard to do that if your focus is everything you do, you want to ask the question, how does this affect or impact the citizens in our community? How does this line up with the long-term vision we have for our village? Is this something that if we didn't do it, is not consistent with where we want to be in 15 to 20 years, or is it consistent with that vision? So my leadership style has been about applying the leadership skills I've earned in my time on Wall Street, and my time in the military as a battalion commander. And we've got a tremendous village council. We operate very effectively, and we've got a tremendous staff under our village manager who does an excellent job. Those are the components that have come together to get our village where we are today. Part of my style also is fiscal intelligence. One of my goals when I became mayor was I wanted to move our village to a point where we would be debt-free, and we did that several years ago now. Right? And we will continue to operate that way. We continue to use fiscal intelligence and intelligent governance, and that's my style. I hope that explains it.
One of the great things about the way that the government of Royal Palm Beach is laid out is that we do have staff that we can rely on. We do have a city manager. There are 5 members of the council, but essentially they're all operating the same, with the mayor as the one who is running the meetings. So in terms of leadership, it's working with everyone on the council, regardless of if you agree completely on something or not, utilizing staff and making the best of making sure that our city manager is continuing the great work that he is doing. We're not always going to agree, but my leadership style is one where I believe everyone can work together for the better of for the betterment of the people. In terms of organizations that I've led, I have definitely been in situations where I'm putting out fires all over the place, or I am working with people to organize an event and we may not necessarily see eye to eye. But that's the whole point of leadership, making sure that you are working with people and coming together. I think that's my type of leadership style.
Before we get to the next question, Mr. Manning, I just want to let our audience know who are here this evening with us here in Village Hall that you can submit questions to this young lady over here. If you do have any questions that you need to write down, she has forms, and then we're going to ask the candidates during the second half of our forum this evening. So again, if you have any questions, get the form, write them down, and we'll try to get to them a little bit later. Mr. Manning, you will be asking the question of Mr. Avila first.
Much of the new development in Royal Palm Beach is in the area known as Tuttle Royale. What are your thoughts regarding how this project has come together?
So I'm being asked something that was done in the past, not necessarily something that I can really go back and change, but something that we'll have to deal with moving forward. I was asked a very interesting question the other day about annexation. And, oh, how do you feel about Wellington crossing that line of Southern Boulevard? Well, Royal Palm Beach did it first, but we can't really go back in time. I am a little bit worried of the effects that it will have in terms of congestion, in terms of density, in terms of crime. And these are all things that worry me and should be a priority as we move forward with the development of this new land that was annexed south of Southern Boulevard.
Okay, Mr. Pinto.
Yeah, as I mentioned earlier, that annexation was voluntary annexation. We didn't just do it, involuntarily. And the people who are developing that initiative had an option. They could have gone over to Wellington because the land that they put together, about 200 square acres of different parcels of land, was basically an unincorporated Palm Beach County. So they had to make a decision which city did they really want to be part of, and I'm glad they made the right choice to be part of Royal Palm Beach, because what that did was that gave us the control over what actually happens there. We put together, as I said, a special ordinance for the development there, so that whatever is being done there is not something that can be replicated by other developers if they try to do that in other parts of the village. We retain the pristine quality of living that we have in our core village. But the other, the term that was used earlier, City Place of the West, I remember when I heard that, I spoke to the folks running that project and told them that is not what this is, and that is not how it should be portrayed or marketed. And they understood that this is a place where it's for the family to come and have family entertainment time, and not have to travel, several miles out of the village to experience that. And that's what's going to be there. It's going to be a tremendous asset to the village as it continues to get developed. We've already addressed the issues of making sure that it's going to be safe, and we've got the right level of policing there. There would be private police as well as our regular police force that would be involved in maintaining those kind of requirements.
Ms. Sharkey? Mr. Pinto, you will answer first.
Royal Palm Beach has no direct control over its schools. However, it does have a committee that works to keep the lines of communication open. Does Royal Palm Beach do a good job working with local schools, and what, if anything, would you like to do differently?
I'm first, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. We have something called the Education Advisory Board, and it was founded many, many years ago. In fact, it was created because at the time we didn't have a high school in Royal Palm Beach. And this board was put together to work that issue, all right, and to try to do what we needed to do to convince the school district that this was a good place to put the next high school. And as you can see, it did work out. We did get a high school. We decided moving forward we wanted to keep that board in place to be a arm to stay in touch and connected with the schools that located within the village of Royal Palm Beach. One of the biggest concerns that we have experienced in past years was the zoning plans that the school uses, because the school doesn't create zones that are coterminous with the boundary lines, the boundaries of a city. And we have students coming in all the way from West Palm Beach going to school here, all right? But there's nothing we can do about that. That's something that's under the purview of the school board. So that is one thing that does concern us. But other than that, we think that overall the school district is doing a pretty good job in helping our schools remain close to A-level schools within our community.
Mr. Avila.
I would make changes to the Education Advisory Committee. A question that I sometimes get asked is, why don't you start by just joining a committee? Well, professionally, I've been a college admissions consultant for quite a while now, and I know school policies and curriculum pretty well. And in spite of that, I don't qualify to be on the Education Advisory Committee, because one either needs to be a parent of a child in the village, or they need to be on a school advisory committee. So I can't even join the Education Advisory Committee, the Education Advisory Board. So that would be change number one. Change number two is really highlighting and showcasing our schools here. We tend to have a little bit of brain drain where parents send their kids to Suncoast, to Dreyfus, which is great. I support school choice. But you can also just go to Royal Palm Beach High School, and if you do really well, you can also get into a pretty good school. I want to highlight that because I'm evidence of that. I graduated first in my class at Royal Palm Beach High School and went off to an Ivy League school. That's testament of the type of schools that we have in Royal Palm Beach. We can produce that type of talent. My little brothers both also went to Cypress Trails. One's at Yale getting his MBA, and the other one works for a congresswoman. I want to keep our students in this village. I don't want them to go to other schools. They can if they want to, but we have some pretty good ones here, and you can do just as well by attending those schools here.
Mr. Coffer, your question, Mr. Avila, you'll respond first.
So housing affordability has been in the news quite a lot recently. What are your thoughts on workforce housing, and can Royal Palm Beach be a part of the solution to work towards some of those issues that we're facing?
So in terms of affordability, one of the things that we take great pride in is our low millage rate, currently set at 192. A lot of that is because of the sale of the water plant to the county a while ago when I was a lot younger. And with inflation being what it is, I think that we could have a conversation where we lower the millage rate, simply because with house prices going up, people are effectively paying more in taxes. So in terms of affordability and in terms of just cost of living, in terms of workforce housing, Royal Palm Beach can definitely be a part of that solution in terms of the development of these things. As we talk about developing these new businesses that are coming in town, workers need to live somewhere. And it's making sure that when we are approving projects, that's a part of the discussion.
Mr. Pinto.
Yeah, the workforce affordable housing question is a very complex issue. It's been an issue that the county's been grappling with for at least 20 years. Over the last 15 years, the county's approach to address this issue was to incentivize developers to allocate portions of their housing development and have it priced at workforce pricing for workforce people to live there. The problem with that is, first of all, if you look back over the 15 years, that approach has not worked. All right, asking the private sector to solve this problem for us, I think, is a fantasy and the wrong approach, particularly when the history shows us that they've done this for the last 15 years and it hasn't worked. Yet they convinced the citizens to pass a $200 billion $200 million bond issue, that they want to use that money to lend it to developers, right, at no cost maybe, to do the same thing. And my take on this, and I grew up originally in New York City. I can remember when I was about 6 or 7 years old, the city had a program where they built these structures themselves and they managed them. And what they created was two things: an inventory that was there for perpetual, and revenues that came in for what they were charging for those living spaces, reinvesting that into additional spaces. I looked into this matter a few years ago and even went around and looked at potential sites in our village where that kind of solution would work if the county decided they would want to do that. It's a complex issue, and I think we need to change our thinking on how we're looking to solve it. We can't look at I don't think the private sector should be asked to solve this problem for us.
Mr. Manning. Mr. Pinto, you will answer first.
How do you rate the programs that the Village of Royal Palm Beach provides its senior citizens? And what else, if anything, would you like to see the village do for its senior citizens?
Oh, I would rate them as excellent, elite A. We have a program in a group called the Young at Hearts. And every year it's growing, and they've got waiting lists for, and you can join. You don't have to live in a village to be a member, although most of the folks who are part of our Young at Hearts group are citizens. We just look every year to help and work with them for additional services they'd like to get for our senior citizens. And as I mentioned earlier, part of our expansion of the rec center is to provide more resource space for additional programming for our senior citizens once that initiative is completed. So I think I'm very happy about the program we have. I get to brag about it whenever I get a chance to do that in other communities. But we have a tremendous senior citizens group here.
Mr. Avila.
I'd like to echo much of what the mayor said. We do have a lot of programs and resources available for seniors, including the Young at Heart program. I believe they just had a bingo thing on last Thursday. I would just like to reiterate what I said earlier about having activities that people who perhaps don't speak English might be able to participate in, because I feel like that's something that would impact a lot of families. That's why I've never taken my grandmothers there.
Ms. Sharkey. Mr. Avila.
Here in Royal Palm Beach and across the county, many public projects over the past decade have been funded by the county-wide sales surtax passed in 2016. There has been discussion of asking the voters to continue the surtax once it expires. Is that something you would support? Why or why not?
I support there being a referendum on the ballot for the tax. Just like we had a $200 million bond that voters were asked and was passed, I also agree that this is something that should continue to be on the ballot.
Mr. Pinto.
Okay, I guess it was our last council meeting, or maybe the one before. We just passed a resolution supporting that the surtax be extended and be put on the ballot for the voters to make a decision on that. But let me give you the rationale why we did that. When this originally was proposed, this special surtax, we supported it, but not because we needed the funds in Royal Palm Beach. Our CIP was already fully funded for 5 years. So it wasn't a situation where we said, wow, we need this extra money to do the projects that we want to get done. But we went to a meeting, and just about every city that was at that meeting were in a situation where they really needed those funds. They had shortfalls and wouldn't be able to do the things they wanted to do. So we said, well, let's be good neighbors and support this so that everyone can get it. Now, it's gone into place. It's supposed to be sunsetting maybe within a year or so, depending what number has been allocated to this point. So we said, well, on a personal level, I really was hoping that it would be sunsetted, and we would put in place a different initiative, and that is to create an independent funding source to build a robust, modern public transportation network in our county. I've been working with on the board of the Transportation Planning Agency, also known as MPL, and we had, for a while, had a lot of conversation and initiative about getting that done, but it became clear that this was something that the county commissioners had the appetite to do and didn't want to do it. So now the question becomes, okay, when this current penny sales tax sunsets, should we rev it up and do it again? So for the greater good of the rest of the cities in our county, we said, yeah, then we would support that. So,
Mr. Coffer, Mr. Pinto, you will answer first.
So are there any types of businesses or industries that either of you feel are lacking or that you'd like to see more of within the village?
businesses or industries, you're saying?
Yeah, either specific types of businesses or industries that you feel there's a need to increase in the village.
I really don't have a magic list of what I'd like to see here. We don't actively advertise for businesses to come, but they show up and they figure out, where they think they could make a contribution and provide, products and services that will be profitable for them as well. What I do, though, is every business that comes before us who wants to come to the village, I ask them about, have they done their due diligence and research? What makes them think their business is going to be successful here? And that's anything from, local stores to, we have another company that just finished building a very attractive warehouse over near the Aldi complexes. Will that bring jobs? That's interesting. Businesses always say, well, if we come here, we're going to bring these many jobs. And I say, well, let's be real. That doesn't mean my folks in my city are going to get those jobs, but that's okay. But that's part of the commentary that you get from new businesses coming in. But we don't have any particular wish lists right now. But any business that thinks that this is a place where they can they be successful and have products and services that our citizens here are interested in having, sure.
Mr. Avila.
I don't quite remember who wrote it or if it was in the Town Crier or the Palm Beach Post, but there was an article written about how Royal Palm Beach had finally gotten to a point where you could be born in the village, go to school in the village, go to college in the village, and be buried in the village. And you can even become a citizen in the village, which my grandma just did last year, which is also in our borders. We've come a long way, and I also really can't think of a magic list because we've grown and developed so much that we have quite a few things. Just in terms of food, we have a Filipino restaurant, we have an Indian restaurant, we have another Indian restaurant that just opened. We got this nice new Publix, we got a Costco, we got a Walmart. We have grown and developed over the last 20 years since I've been here. And in terms of any businesses that we might not have that citizens perhaps are wanting, West Palm Beach is just a 12-mile ride. Wellington is just right next door. Anything that people don't have access to in the village is readily available just a drive away.
Mr. Manning. Mr. Avila.
In recent years, the village has been discussing policies regarding the future of its major commercial corridors. What are your thoughts regarding the future of these areas, particularly the State Road 7 and Okeechobee Boulevard and Southern Boulevard corridors?
Sure. So we essentially only really have North Lake, if you live in the northern part of Royal Palm Beach. We have Okeechobee, Southern. We've been talking about the State Road 7 extension for quite a while, and it just keeps on being delayed. I support it, and it would definitely alleviate traffic, but it's been a discussion that has taken quite a long time. And I'm not even sure that this is something that's going to happen until in the next like 5 years. But yes, traffic is a very serious problem because we're essentially an east-west connector, especially as Westlake continues to grow. Our neighbors in ITID are continuing to grow, and they're also having issues with traffic. In terms of State Road 7, it's going to happen. It's a matter of when and how.
Mr. Pinto.
Yeah, traffic, is that the subject? Traffic is an interesting conversation, and I always talk about it in context of what we're faced with is an environment where the professionals who plan traffic, that's what they know is how to build more roads. That's their expertise, and they do a good job at that. But the reality is, if all you're doing, and of all the funding that's coming in, 90% of it is earmarked, it can only be used to build more roads. If that's what you're going to do, you perpetuate the problem. The more roads means more cars, right? You'll never get out of that until we really earnestly commit to building a robust public network. And what I want to give my citizens, I want them to have the option of not having to take their car, that they can use public transportation. In terms of State Road 7, that has been going on a long time. I believe it'll get, it's pushed back from FDOT, I think the 2026, 2028 time window. There's been litigation from West Palm Beach fighting this, and that's really what's delayed it from being completed. But we need that to get completed as North Lake is being extended with Avenir being developed up there. People up there will need that as a means of getting down to southern, say Road 7, or getting down to Okeechobee if they want to head east. The main corridors of Southern Boulevard and really the thing that what's happening Southern Boulevard and North Lake are going to be the main corridors. We supported the ITID when they and Loxahatchee Groves when they decided they did not want to arbitrarily extend the portion of Okeechobee that runs through their city. All right, and one of the things about traffic, it seeks the path of least resistance. If they stay a two-lane, and one of the things they did, and we supported that, was they reduced the speed limit to make it even less attractive for traffic that wants to come down, Okeechobee and then go right straight through out to Pratt Whitney. So those are the kind of things we're looking at, and you're going to see it happening up on North Lake. We already know Southern Boulevard is it's like almost a highway the way they develop, and that's been their plan all along. We have no control over Southern Boulevard, and actually Okeechobee is a county road as well. But the folks in the acreage,
thank you, Mr. Pinto.
And Loxahatchee Groves. Did I run over? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
They're supporting that. Traffic is a great subject.
Ms. Sharkey and Mr. Pinto, you will answer first.
Okay.
What are your thoughts regarding the village's finances, both this year's budget and projected into the future?
I think I may have made comments about that already. I'm very proud of the fact that we are debt-free, and we're going to remain debt-free going into the future. We've got a budget that's it's going to give us the ability to do all the things that we need to get done. But more importantly, we got a budget. When we talk about being a safe place to live, we put our money where our mouth is. Most expensive item on our budget is what we pay for police support, and that's money well spent because we're seeing the results from that. So I think the outlook is just tremendous for us to continue to go forward. We're very strong financially, and as long as I have an opportunity to serve this community, we will stay that way.
Mr. Avila?
As I mentioned earlier, I would welcome the discussion to discuss lowering the millage rate. The reason why we're in a good financial shape in the village is because of the sale of the water plant. In terms of moving forward with inflation being what it is, I think that it's time for residents to get a little bit more back so that they could deal with the cost of living. So lower the millage rate and make sure that taxes are lower.
All right, we have time for one more question. This from Mr. Coffer to wind up the first half of this forum.
Thank you. To close with the last question, are there any specific policy initiatives that you see are imperative to support our local businesses, particularly our small independent business owners?
Mr. Avila?
Any particular policy decisions that affect small businesses? I would say making sure that bureaucracy and red tape doesn't hinder the process of opening a business here in the village. I think one of the biggest things is just perhaps ordinances when it comes to how big this needs to be or the stairs need to be this. Those are all things that might affect how much time it takes for businesses to get up and running. So I would work with local businesses to make sure that the the time that's needed to for them to open is easier, that it gets done faster.
Mr. Pinto.
Yeah, our process that we have in place, we've automated most of the work that has to be done for businesses or any other institute that wants to establish something here in the village, which does facilitate it, and it documents everything, and it helps to get the right questions out early for them in the process so that they can address those issues and reduce what we call the punch list of things that have to be done moving forward. One of the things we did recently to help our local businesses, in particular, I guess, restaurants, was we modified our ordinance so that they can have greater outdoor seating. This came about during the COVID era where businesses came to us and said, if people can't come inside their place of business to eat, can we do it outside? And we said, sure. And we created an interim solution to allow businesses to do that. But we realized going through it, he says, this may be something that we should look at expanding going forward to give businesses that more opportunity. We're always open to input from our local retailers, and if there's anything we can do to assist them in terms of the administration, or we don't want ordinances to be a burden. And to date, haven't really found that to be so in terms of our local businesses. So.
Gentlemen, thank you. And that concludes the first half of tonight's candidates forum. We're going to be taking a short break. Everybody can stretch your legs, and we will go through the questions that have been submitted. And when we come back, we will be asking those questions that have been submitted from our audience. So we'll take a break. And Josh, what time do you want to come back? 8 o'clock? About 10 minutes. All right. Thank you. And if you have a question now, Betty is still over here, ready to take your questions on the forms. Okay. And welcome back to the second half of this candidates forum for the position of Mayor of Royal Palm Beach. Now, we have questions that have been submitted by our audience. We're going to get to those first. We do have some extra questions from our first round, and if we have time, we might get to some of those. So the first question to you gentlemen, and Mr. Avila, you will respond first. A recent law requires local elected officials to file Form 6, which requires much more financial information to be disclosed. Do you believe these disclosures constitute an undue burden or an invasion of privacy? Mr. Avila.
I'm not a fan of Form 6 for a variety of reasons, but the top one is that.
Hang on a minute.
Is it on now? Oh, okay. There we go. It was off. I'm not a fan of Form 6, mostly because it discourages people from getting involved in the political process. We've seen what it does here in Palm Beach County, where there were several people who decided not to run in the northern part of this county. In terms of whether it's an invasion of privacy or things like that, those are judgment calls. But the types of questions that they're asking are pretty intrusive and might discourage people from getting involved. Obviously, there should be some sort of transparency in terms of what interests someone has, in the same way that we do the same thing with political contributions.
Mr. Pinto.
Yeah, I think the concept of Form 6 is a good thing, actually. People talk about transparency. Well, that's what this is all about. Transparency, where you have to reveal your business holdings, what stock you may have, what could shape your decision making if you're in an elective office. So I think Form 6 is probably a good thing to do.
From the audience, when can we get our post office back? Mr. Pinto.
I'm going to say I hope it's really soon. The post office, their facilities are done. They're ready. They've started moving the equipment back in there. But we found out the post office has a lot of their own individual ordinances about things have to be a certain way and signage, and they're working through that. But it's coming. It's coming. I can't give you the exact date, but I'm told it's coming along. I went to look at the facility last week, and they have made a lot of progress. But when it comes, it's going to be tremendous. They'll have their own entrance and on this side of the building. So that's where we are.
Mr. Avila.
That's more or less the same thing I've been hearing, that it's coming. If anything, I want to know when we're going to get the DMV back. There are quite a few people who don't even know that it's no longer in Royal Palm Beach, it's out in Westlake. But yes, obviously it would be great for us to have a post office, and I'm looking forward to having that come to fruition.
All right, Mr. Avila, you will respond to this question from one of our audience members. How can we have sidewalks in Sandpiper Avenue? It is very difficult to walk around my neighborhood.
So I've already started knocking on doors, and when I talk, and I've started on Sandpiper where I live, and it's a concern that some people actually have, that when those houses were built, they didn't come with a sidewalk. And in order for them to have a sidewalk, owners would essentially need to cede part of their land, which isn't really going to happen. And that's just the story.
Mr. Pinto?
There could be sidewalks on Sandpiper if the majority of the citizens along Sandpiper vote to say, yes, they'd like to have sidewalks. We've had, I think, at least two occasions over the last several years where the question was posed because citizens that live along Sandpiper would say, gee, we'd like to have sidewalks. And we'd go through the process and find that the support wasn't there from the majority of residents on Sandpiper. So if that changes, yeah, they'll get their sidewalks. But until that changes, there's nothing we really can do.
All right, Mr. Pinto. Based on all reports, Royal Palm Beach is doing exceptionally well nationwide. What will anyone want you to do differently to change this legacy?
When you say nationwide,
I'm
Trying to
not quite
understand the
sure.
context.
Well, Royal Palm Beach is doing exceptionally well.
That part is true. We are doing exceptionally well. And I think I may have addressed this in some of the responses earlier. We have to continue to work at maintaining the level of excellence we're at. We haven't raised our millage rate in 20 years. And that's not because of one event that brought us to that. It's because of continued intelligent governance and fiscal responsibility that we've been able to do that. The fact of the matter is, even though we maintain the same millage rate, is a good news scenario. And the good news is if your property values go up, okay, your dollars that you would pay at the same millage rate would go up. Not significantly, but it will. But the good news is your property values are going up. And the good news is the millage rate is not being changed. It's not being raised. So that's the yin and the yang to that, I think.
Mr. Avila?
I've already spoken to where I stand on the millage rate. And I would argue that I completely agree that Royal Palm Beach is doing well. But doing well doesn't necessarily mean that we shouldn't have change. And that's the whole point of me running. I didn't want there to be another Royal Palm Beach municipal election where all 3 seats were going to go uncontested. And so it's a matter of bringing this village into the 21st century. And I'm 34 years old. I inherited my father's boyish looks, but I'm 34. And my generation and how we've grown up with the use of technology is something that I really want our village to be using, because it's very difficult to get access to some things without sleuthing around, and they should just be more readily available.
Okay. Mr. Avila, you will answer this next question. I think this is a fair question from one of our audience members. What would you identify as your top 2 primary differences between the 2 of you?
There are a lot. So the top 2, I would talk about philosophically, we have a different approach to term limits. I'm not some one-trick pony where I'm running just because I believe in term limits and I think that there should be change. 20 years is a long time. I'm representative of a whole generation, if not 2 generations, away from the current mayor. And with that brings a lifetime of experiences that equip me to handle the challenges that we face. Term limits are there should be there at the municipal level. Why Royal Palm Beach doesn't have them is beyond me. That's number 1. Number 2, like I said earlier, this concept of quid pro quo or anything that resembles it is something that troubles me. And that's why I'm very confident when I say, when it comes to political contributions from people that have dealings with the village, it gets really, really murky, and I believe that I have a difference of opinion when it comes to that. I don't think it should be allowed, even though it is completely legal.
Mr. Pinto?
All right, I would say the first difference is experience in governance, experience on Wall Street, experience in the military, all of which I've leveraged as a public servant to the citizens of Royal Palm Beach to make Royal Palm Beach what it is today. I'm not going to go into the term limit comment, but we in fact have term limits, and it's very simple in Royal Palm Beach. If the citizens don't think you're representing them the way they'd like to be represented, you'll be voted out. This is demonstrated by the fact that over the last 13 years, we've had an 80% turnover rate of our village council. 80% of the members on our council weren't here 13 years ago. So I think, like I said, we're not in competition with other cities. We have our own special way of things here in the village. I think this is a special place. And so I would say those are probably 2 differences I would note.
All right. Now, you touched on on this a little bit earlier, but it is a question for both of you. What is your experience in government, in governance and leadership? Did any candidate, well, let's just leave it at that. I can't read the rest of it. What is your experience in governance and leadership? And like I said, you touched on it. And Mr. Pinto, you'll go first. Maybe you can expand on that.
You know, one of the things about local governance is there are things that you're not going to know or learn unless you are doing it. Typically, in past years, someone who was interested in becoming part of the government structure here as an elected official, they would spend some time on some of the committees we have in the village to learn about the inner workings of the village. But more importantly, they'd usually wait for a seat to open up, and then they would run for that open seat and begin the education process, because if you haven't done it before, there are many things that you have to learn about the inner workings of running a city, especially running a city that's effective, as effective as we are. So you got that kind of time needs to be put in. And then, you know, the opportunity for a mayor would be if you're a serving council person, you've put the time and sweat into learning and working and serving. Now that becomes an opportunity to move that, because the mayor's job is very different from all the other members on council. And, you know, it's truly a leadership position, and leading the council and managing our full-time staff, you know, through the village manager, in terms of understanding your approach for policy and making sure that the things that are important in terms of serving our citizens are really dealt with and addressed all the time, at some of the time. So,
Mr. Avila.
People take different paths to where they get to where they are. Sometimes you can start on a committee. I couldn't start on a committee because I didn't qualify for it. True story. When it comes to the mayor position in Royal Palm Beach, you're essentially a council member. There is a city manager, there is staff. You lead the meetings, you are a figurehead. This is the way that the government works in the city of Royal Palm Beach. What experience do I have at the local level? Through the Board of County Commissioners for District 6, I was able to work with constituents on cases that they brought up at the county level. I brought the town hall that the county commissioner had here to the village of Royal Palm Beach. I attended the National Association of Counties. I attended Palm Beach County Days for the last 2 years. I have pretty extensive relationships with elected officials throughout Palm Beach County, and I'll be rolling out endorsements that I have from them later next week. I am from here. Just because I might not have shown up to a meeting because I didn't want to let the censor know that I might be running for office, I've been watching meetings online, because you can watch them online. You can watch them on YouTube, you can watch them live. I'm pretty aware of what's been going on in Royal Palm Beach. And sometimes people need to start their way up. But even in the military, sometimes you can enter right in with a higher pay grade if you have the skills, knowledge, and expertise.
Okay. Now, we touched on this in the first half, but someone wants a little bit more information about it. We heard about senior and youth recreation. What measures, policies can you implement or aid in implementing for our local school and education?
who's first, me?
Mr. Avila, sorry.
Sure. Could you repeat the question, please?
Okay, yeah. We've heard about senior and youth recreation. What measures or policies can you implement or aid in implementing for our local schools or education? Whose question was this? Do you want to expand on it?
Yes. Well, it was basically asking, I know you touched on it, right after I submitted it, you talked about education, and because I was intrigued, I know that they lightly touched on education.
Right.
I think training, and I want to see how they can work alongside the school board in implementing such policies.
Sure.
Okay, Mr. Ravel.
Personal capacity, I was a sponsor for the Wildcat Way golf tournament that Royal Palm Beach had. I think it was back in April. So I had the opportunity to visit Royal Palm Beach, where I went to high school, and see Coach Patterson, who is now the athletics director, which was pretty neat. And through the Rotary Club of Royal Palm Beach, I've actually spoken to the Interact Club about my activism in the community and community service. So there are avenues. With the schools in terms of getting involved. More specifically, in terms of policy decisions, that's something that's perhaps best left to the school board. Education Advisory Committee meetings are online, and they often have different schools come in and showcase what's going on, performances. They also, on occasion, have Marcia Andrews, the school board member for District 6, attend. And in terms of specific policies, that's perhaps left to the school board, but in terms of engagement, there are definitely opportunities for you to do just that. I mean, my cousin goes to Cypress Trails Elementary, and she's in kindergarten, and there are always events that happen there. So in terms of getting involved, that's something that is always there.
Mr. Pinto.
Yeah, and in the context of the school's curriculum and programs within the school, that is beyond our purview here at the local level in the city. That is really controlled by the School District's Board of Commissioners. But I do have a tremendous working relationship with Marcia Andrews, who is our District 6 Commissioner. And we just got finished a project that we've been working with her on and the school district on for about a year, and that was to get an electronic information board in front of Royal Palm Beach. And we had to do something with our zoning, our ordinances, and we sat with them to do that. And it's coming to fruition finally. But that would be my latest example of something that, the kind of thing that we can do with the schools in terms of working with them. But curriculum issues, that's purely up to the schools.
How can the business community in Royal Palm Beach be involved or supportive of the village's vision? Mr. Pinto.
I think I may have touched on this earlier. The businesses, and I think I mentioned I'm going to reestablish this year my coffee with the mayor with the business owners within the village to interact and connect with them and get input and feedback and share some thoughts with them as well. This is something that's evolving, and that's fundamentally the question that you just posed is the question I want to talk to our business leaders about.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Ravala?
There's a Wellington Chamber of Commerce, there's a Central Palm Beach Chamber of Commerce, but they both tend to be very Wellington heavy. When I've attended these meetings, there's very little participation from Royal Palm Beach. Maybe that's something that I just haven't been. But I would definitely love for more businesses to be involved in Royal Palm Beach, just because we're kind of, if Wellington is a bedroom community, and I hate to always use Wellington as an example because it's like The Simpsons where it's Springfield and Shelbyville, what's that?
No, this isn't your forum. Thank you. Mr. Avila.
So what I just meant to say is the types of, we have a few more, we're more known for our businesses and perhaps other communities that surround us, and that's something that could definitely be leveraged in terms of the space that we have here. In terms of participation with businesses in the community, there are always opportunities for sponsorships, like with the Baseball Association, for example. So I would definitely welcome more active participation in businesses in civic and business organizations in the Western communities.
Okay, the next question, Mr. Avila, you will respond first. Does the village do an effective job communicating with residents, What, if anything, would you do to improve this?
So there is a social media presence. There's also a calendar online. There is definitely some engagement with people in terms of what's going on. There's a calendar, there's a newsletter. People who are wanting to know what's going on in the village in terms of activities or how to rent a room at the rec center, et cetera, all of that is readily available. I perhaps would maybe increase that type of involvement, but the infrastructure is already there. It's perhaps more about just taking it to the next level in terms of Instagram, for example, and other social media outlets.
Mr. Pinto.
Yeah, this is an issue that was very important to us. I guess about maybe 4 years ago. I'm not sure the timeline. I remember we had a village council meeting about a subject that was touchy for a lot of people. And we did have people turn out to the village hall to comment on it. But one of the comments, feedback I got was they felt like they didn't know about it until it was very late in terms of when the meeting was going to happen. And that resonated with me. And I said, I'm gonna do something to address that because, you know, although we met the legal requirements for public notification, it was clear to me in listening to the citizens that that just wasn't good enough. So I put something in place called Vector. All right, and it's from the desk of the mayor, and there's a plethora. It's growing to 2 pages now, where you can subscribe to that, and that will get sent to you well before village meetings. It tells you what's coming down the pike, things that you want to know about, special websites that we get presentations on, that we have information for you that you can go to. So it's above and beyond just telling folks, you know, look at our website. But it's kind of my approach is pushing out that information to our citizens. And it's been very well received.
Is the village doing a good job maintaining its roads, canals, and lakes? If not, what would you like to see done? Mr. Pinto.
The short answer is yes, I think we're doing a very good job. We listen to our citizens when they come and tell us, you know, that the lake next to them or the stream has gotten growth in it and is being blocked, and we react and respond to that. But we've increased our investment over the last 3 years in contracting professionals to better maintain those lakes and canals, you know, better than we have in the past. So I think we've got out in front of that, and we're doing a good job now.
Mr. Avila?
I likewise believe that the village has done a good job with these initiatives. One of the things that sometimes happens, so we brought up Sandpiper, for example. Sandpiper is where a lot of people years ago would drive to pass by Royal Palm Beach Boulevard, and there was quite a big problem with speeding. And so there was a referendum that happened on Sandpiper, and a majority of the residents decided to add speed bumps. So there definitely is a process when anything that is driven by the residents who want to change something, they are able to do that. But in terms of what you spoke to, I'm completely satisfied.
What policies do you feel are necessary to help retain and grow a future workforce? Mr. Avila.
A future workforce?
Yes.
In other words, like students, and I'm not sure I understand the question.
I think more just students, like how do we continue to educate?
Sure. Sure. So I spoke about this a little bit earlier when I use the term brain drain. I think that we should definitely highlight the strengths of our local schools. Royal Palm Beach High School does have an IB program and does have a variety of different programs like JROTC, et cetera. And I think highlighting those things is good. In terms of when people go off to college and move back home and try to figure out what their next steps, I definitely want to make sure that Royal Palm Beach is an attractive option for young people to start their families. Whether it's having Shakespeare in the park or having, when we have quite a few parks, by the way, making sure that there is some type of activity here that keeps people engaged. That will definitely stem that brain drain, period.
Mr. Pinto?
All right, let me make sure I understand the context of the question. We're talking about students growing up, graduating from high school, and leaving to go to college and not coming back for a career here?
Yeah.
Well, you know, that's reality. This is this is Royal Palm Beach. Young people that are growing up, you know, they have ambitious goals they like to achieve. And those goals are not going to be achieved trying to stay here and work in Royal Palm Beach because those jobs aren't here. When I first relocated to Florida over 25 years ago, I was working on Wall Street, and I told my wife then that they don't have the kind of work that I do up on Wall Street down in South Florida, all right? And we'd have to address that in terms of the kind of job that I might be able to get coming down here. And we took that into consideration. But the reality is, I think it's wonderful if our kids grow up and they go off to college. And we live in a society today where our kids' families are spread all over the United States, primarily because they're pursuing their careers. And I think that's a good thing. I don't feel like they should be burdened with, oh, you have to stay in Royal Palm Beach and have a career here, because it's not going to happen, all right? They're going to get good education, and then they want to take advantage of those good education and take advantage of the opportunities that are available to them out there in the world.
Next question, Mr. Pinto, you will answer first. What is your vision for the future of Royal Palm Beach over the next decade?
Great question. As a council, when we were doing one of our strategic planning processes, I guess this is about, I don't know, 4 years ago, maybe 5, we decided that one of the things we wanted to establish was a vision for the future. And what that pretty much meant was we wanted to define 15, 20 years from now, what did we want Royal Palm Beach to look like, to be like? And we worked on that, and we came to an agreement on what that vision is. And we use that vision now every time we're making major decisions about something that's going to be going forward in our future. We ask this question: is this consistent with where we see the vision for our village 15 and 20 years from now? And if it's not, then we'll say, well, you know what, it's probably something we shouldn't do if it's not consistent with being in line with that vision. So that's, I see Royal Palm Beach, people talk about development. We're pretty much built out. We don't really have any land available other than maybe the corner of State Road 7 and Okeechobee Boulevard. It's privately owned land. So we're not going to see, within the village confines, a lot of growth there. Is there going to be growth outside of the village? Yeah, and we have to look at what we can do to make sure that it doesn't encroach on us and impact our lifestyle here in the village of Royal Palm Beach.
Mr. Avila?
I really hope that State Road 7 will be done in 10 years from now. But that speaks to the whole concept of growth throughout Royal Palm Beach. I moved in here when I was 7 years old, and I remember it being totally different, and I've grown along with it. In terms of what I see Royal Palm Beach to be in the next 10 years, it's the same Royal Palm Beach that I had while growing up, going to all the different parks, going to Calypso Bay, going to the Walmart. I remember when this super Walmart opened. That's my hometown, and I want to make sure that that charm that it has is available for future generations. Our little logo here has a mom, a dad, and a kid, and a bunch of trees there. I want those trees to be still there when 10 years comes by, 10 years pass.
Mr. Avila, next question for you. What are you most proud of in the village of Royal Palm Beach?
The parks. We have so many of them, and I have so many fond memories from when I was growing up, whether it was watching my little brothers play baseball in front of Royal Palm Beach High School, or walking to Bobby Joe Lauder Park, which is along Sandpiper Avenue, or going to Veterans Park. I'm definitely proud of our parks and how people, not just only in Royal Palm Beach, make use of them, but people from throughout ITID as well, and Wellington come and take advantage of that. That's what I'm most proud of, the opportunities and memories that I've had.
Mr. Pinto.
There's no one thing I'm most proud of. I have a list of many things that I'm very proud of, and solely the parks are up there. In particular, Commons parks. The story behind Commons is an example of where your local government decided that instead of letting that be encroached upon by developers and having a bunch of homes built there, we wanted to retain our open space within the village. So we put our money where our mouth is, and we acquired the park. But it wasn't just acquiring the park, it was embarking on a project to develop it to the point where it is today and all the amenities that you find in Commons Park. It's just a tremendous, tremendous place for the village of Royal Palm Beach. Another thing I'm very proud of is our fiscal intelligence that we've used for several years for many different projects and issues that have put us where we are today in very sound financial condition.
Mr. Pinto, question for you first. How will you work with the chambers to educate and support local business?
I've always been open and working with the chambers when any ideas they would come up to get me involved to help our connectivity with our business partners and being available to them to address questions that our businesses may have. And I will continue to do that.
Mr. Avila?
Well, I just mentioned a little bit earlier how I would definitely encourage more businesses in Royal Palm Beach to become members of the Palm Beach, the Central Palm Beach Chamber of Commerce and the Wellington Chamber of Commerce. We used to have Palms West, but that's no longer here. Just more representation from Royal Palm Beach. I mean, on the 31st, we have Wendy Link speaking at the Wellington Chamber. And I think that it's nice to have more representation.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Mr. Avila, why do you believe you are the best person to serve as the mayor of Royal Palm Beach?
I'm really energetic. When I set my mind to something, I just go ahead and do it. And I've had a lot of experiences and working with different people from all walks of life that really allow me to have a certain skill set. In talking to people and talking to voters, going door to door, it's nice for them to say, oh wow, like we need new blood, we need new energy. And I like that. It's not just that I'm energetic, it's that I'm pretty knowledgeable about what's happening throughout Palm Beach County. I can name all 9 state reps, all 4 state senators. I can name you all 7 county commissioners. I know who these people are. I have many of them are in my phone book. I have relationships throughout Palm Beach County, and I am from here. I represent the changing face of Royal Palm Beach, my hometown, and I want to bring much needed change to this village.
Mr. Avila, thank you. Mr. Pinto.
I've been doing this job and helping the village to and guide the village to where we are today, and I hopefully have the honor to continue doing that on behalf of the citizens. As I said earlier, I'm a public servant. I'm not a politician, and I think, you know, this is a serious job, all right? It's not a figurehead position. It really isn't. And that I will continue to leverage my skills and experience as I have already going forward if the citizens continue to keep me in office.
We may have done this in the first round. How do you think the village is doing as far as promoting arts, cultural activities, and other entertainment in the community? And Mr. Pinto, you'll go first.
Wow, we have a pretty rich program. I think we have, this year we're going to have 5 major events, starting with West Fest, which will be next month at Commons Park. One of the things about the events that we do stage at Commons Park and then is that it's open to the public. No one is charged anything to go to attend. And there's plenty of food available. We have food trucks, but you can bring your own food if you choose to. It's that kind of open environment, and our programs have been very successful. We have the Friday night movies going on. There's just so many activities going on. I'm glad at our council meeting, one of our council members always makes sure to let the public know what's coming up in the next month so they could put it on their calendar. I think we're doing a tremendous job there, and we'll continue to look to do that as we go forward.
Mr. Avila?
I'm equally impressed with everything the village has done to market all the activities that the village organizes, from concerts to Shakespeare in the Park to the Green Market. There are opportunities for families to attend or for people to meet other residents, and I look forward to continuing making sure that we have those activities available.
Gentlemen, thank you. That concludes the round of questioning in this forum this evening. Now we're going to go to closing statements. You have up to 2 minutes for a closing statement, and Mr. Pinto, you will go first.
All right. As I said earlier, Royal Palm Beach is a special place. We're not in competition with other cities. We're just focusing on what's the right things to do concerning our citizens to maintain the wonderful quality of life that we've experienced here and sustain that level of excellence going forward. I look and ask for your vote to let me continue to serve you as a public servant. I have the experience. I think I've demonstrated that with the results. One of the things about leadership that's important is look at the outcomes created by a leader. So look at my outcomes and our staff and council's outcomes that we've created for you, the citizens here in Royal Palm Beach. And if you think those outcomes are positive for you, and I'll look for you to continue to support us.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Avila.
The election is March 19th. Please make sure you turn out and vote. I might be knocking on your door and convincing you to vote for me. This is my hometown, and I love this place. I grew up here. I learned how to drive here. I was so happy when the new Publix opened that I showed up there super early, and I was super excited to try out all the neat things. I remember when the Super Walmart opened, and I have ideas, and I have energy, and I have relationships, and I represent people who have far too long gone unheard. And for the first time, there can be someone who actually grew up in Royal Palm Beach on the village council. And that's amazing. Someone who actually went to Royal Palm Beach High School can become mayor. That's what I want our next generation to do, to dream, to make sure that they can be involved in the political process and that they can vote if they're 18 years old. So that's my closing remark. Turn out and vote on March 19th.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. And ladies and gentlemen, please join me in thanking our candidates for their participation this evening. And thanks also to the sponsors of tonight's Candidates Forum, and to you, our audience, for being here this evening, and to those at home who are watching. Again, the election is March 19th. Please cast your ballot, drive safely, and good night, everybody.